I'm Adam Manis.
Huh? What?
I'm Adam Manis.
Oh, I'm Peter Martin.
And you're listening to the You'll Hear It podcast.
Number one, listen. Music explored.
Music explored, brought to you by The Open Studio. Go to openstudiojazz.com for your jazz lesson needs. Peter.
We are not incommunicado today. We are in communicado.
We are post-communicado? Sans Christian Sans communicado.
Yes, we are in communication. We are in the zone.
We are trying to communicate.
Right.
With gestures.
Gesticulations.
With body language.
Eye winks.
Winks.
Eye rolls.
Nods. Half smiles.
Maybe not.
And it's all because of a question by our dear listener, Alex from Brazil. Let's check out Alex's question on a speak pipe. By the way, if you want to leave us a question, go to you'llhearit.com and leave us a speak pipe.
So you're saying if people want to communicate with us,
yes,
they should do so via the speak pipe system, which is hosted at you'llhearit.com.
Don't just think it before you say it. Hear it before you see it.
That's right.
You see it before you hear it.
My mind's
Hey, Peter. Hey, Adam. This is Alex from Brazil. Big fan of the show. I wanted to bring like a new subject. I haven't heard that being discussed at Open Studio nor at the show, which is kind of communication amongst musicians during a gig. So particularly when you're playing with musicians you don't really know, so you don't know what to expect from them. So I was just wondering, like, how do you guys navigate on a gig in this context, like with cues? If you have interesting stories about your own personal experiences, saying like, how do you, for instance, get into a solo, how to ask somebody to chill a little bit when they're overly playing or overly soloing. So I don't know. I thought this would be like an interesting topic that would interest everybody. So anyways, thank you so much for all your service for the music community. Bye.
Oh, thank you, Alex, for the kind words. Bye.
Thanks, Alex. Arrivederci. Nope.
No, that's the wrong country.
Ciao.
No, we really appreciate the question. It's a great question, Peter. And I'm not sure if we had to have talked about communication on the podcast at some point.
I hope so.
I mean,
that would have been
thousands of episodes
faux
later.
pas.
Yeah, for real.
Folks pox.
But it's a great question, especially, in the situation you're describing where you're playing with someone new or you're playing in a new band, or maybe it's at a jam session and you don't know any of the players or you've never played with them before.
Yes.
How do you communicate when you're going to solo, when they're going to solo? I love that he said when someone's like playing too much.
That would never happen.
Yeah, that would never happen. And even little things like
just stop playing.
Well, that is one I was going to say. That's like could be the first
your last straw, maybe.
The last straw is to we could talk about this, but yeah. And then like even intros and endings, you can communicate an intro and an ending non-verbally, 100%. You don't have to. Like if I were to, Peter, so let's just talk about that. Like we've never met. We're going to play a 2-piano gig for some reason, and we've never met.
Hey, who the hell are you?
If I were to start a tune off like this.
That was my first little non-verbal cue. Maybe you get the bridge.
So already we've had a few different things. So the first non-verbal cue was actually just me going. I was telling you what song we're going to play. Again, so when you're playing music with other people, there's generally a shared language. Just like when you meet someone new, you don't have to establish, the language you're going to, well, maybe you do have to establish the language you're going to speak, but let's say,
that's actually very important.
It is very important.
That's part of what that process was.
That's part of what so I'm going to say, we're going to play some standards. I'm going to set the tempo. We're going to play it at this tempo. I'm saying all of that.
Yeah.
The standard is Autumn Leaves.
Catch Me If You Can.
right? Peter knows exactly what to do. And we could actually say a lot musically without even any body language, right? Like if we were to do that, do this, and then I were to kind of imply.
We know where that's going. So but you have to know that already. You have to know
these little language cues.
Autolevisms.
And then when we got to the end of what we were just playing, so the first thing is then I threw the bridge to you, because at the end of that, I looked at you. I did one of those.
Yeah, what if I'd been like, who, me?
Well, if you would have been, that's actually a great point, because I have thrown it to people at some point and they're like this.
Right.
Or they're like this.
And or they're like this.
Yeah, or they're on their phone. So you could be throwing to someone and they're not, then you're just
to be clear, we're not talking, for those of you on the pod that can't see us, go to YouTube, first of all. You're missing out. This is about some verbal cues today, but also
nonverbal cues.
Nonverbal. Why do I keep saying verbal cues? But also, we're not throwing shade when we say that. We're throwing the ball. We're passing the baton.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's important also to keep your head on a swivel, especially at the beginning and ends of sections, right? So that's when things happen. The beginning, the end of a chorus, right? The beginning of a new chorus.
Transitions.
The transition between an A section and a B section. Like, keep your head on a swivel. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to go around making intense eye contact with everybody in the room as you're going.
No, in fact,
this kind of look up and give a,
Yeah, this is an important point. And I would say too much of this can be a problem. So how do you know when to have your head on a swivel, right? Yeah. We're always listening, of course, but if we're always listening intently, we're never listening intently, right? We have to know those times when we can relax a little bit on either looking up. I mean, ultimately, I think it always comes down to listen. Like the highest level is if you can do all of this by ear without even looking. But because you don't know the other players, you don't know necessarily what kind of affirmation they need to segue or to do something different, then the nonverbal becomes important, right?
Yeah.
The visual. So I think this idea of like, what are the important points for us to be extra alert? Transitions, introductions, beginnings, ending, going between sections, whenever a solo starts, whenever a solo's maybe at a climax, whenever it's trailing off. You don't want to do every single possible time, but you want a hierarchy of possible opportunities to be able to connect. Because ultimately, I think, the answer to the thing of like, how do you communicate? The whole point of the thing is like, it's really about how do you get to that point where the performance can be possibly great amongst musicians that don't know each other.
So here's the highest level thing. So the very last thing that we ended up on, Peter, was the end of the chorus there. I keep switching the tempo. Apologies.
I'm listening.
And you threw it to me, right? Now check it out. So the best way to lock into communication, the mostest way, is to I'll now get into my solo, and I'm going to be listening so intensely to what Peter is playing. I'm going to be pulling every single one of my ideas from something that I hear Peter play in his accompaniment, right? And this is a trick it's not even a trick, but it's a technique you can use in order to say, like, I am listening to, it's like the conversational technique, Peter, where if someone says something, you pick up and you like, tell me something, tell me anything about what we're talking about here.
Today we're talking about different ways to communicate on and off the bandstand, perhaps.
On and off the bandstand is a great place to talk about communication. So I just picked up where you left off, the last thing you said, and I said it back to you.
You kind of co-signed it. You kind of affirmed it.
Exactly. It's a conversational technique that works great, and it just shows the other person that you are listening to them. Right?
Conversational technique. Exactly. That's the important part. See, I'm listening.
So you can work on this even amongst your improv, because this is exactly the same as a language, right?
And it can become annoying though if you overdo it.
You don't want to overdo it, but let's see how we do this. So. every single thing that I'm playing comes from what Peter has already played. You might not even notice that, you know? Because I'm not playing exactly what he's doing, but I'm taking all the ideas.
And they're not always rhythmic. Sometimes they're harmonic. Sometimes they're melodic.
Melodic, yeah. Or I'm stealing the general shape of what you're doing. Or I'm taking one little rhythm that I hear you do, and I'm kind of spinning it around. This is an incredible communication technique. And it's not just great for getting information and getting ideas, but it lets the rest of your band know. You could do this with every single member of the rhythm section you're playing with. It lets them know, I hear you. Like, I am listening. This is not about all about me. This is about us, what we're doing, and I am needing you to fuel the fire. And look what happened. As soon as we started doing that, Peter started feeding me more ideas. He started recognizing that we are in a conversation and that what you're saying is being heard and matters to what I'm playing. Yeah. And that is the highest level of improvisation that you could do.
Yeah. And it's great because not only does it let them know that they're being heard, but it also elevates the game potentially. Right. Now, the other player has to have the skills in order to be able to, you know, go to that next level. So, and everybody, you know, there's different levels within that. But the idea is when I hear that the soloist, kind of the one in charge of the direction of like where we're going to go, is listening to something that I'm playing underneath, all of a sudden it makes me kind of have to be like, oh, let me keep my shit together.
You're a part of this.
Yeah, I'm a part of this. And like, I can't just slack off because something that I play that might be a little bit half-assed or something, he might pick up on that, and then I'm exposed, right? You know, and this is kind of that survival sort of instinct. So I think it's a great thing to sort of elevate and like attune the room to another level of consciousness and intentionality in terms of not only how we individually play, how we interact with each other, but ultimately what the kind of complete work project of what we're doing, work in progress, as we're moving along, comes across to the listener. So they might not be able to be like, wait, he's listening to that, and then he's listening.
No, they shouldn't, actually.
They shouldn't, no. But,
that's when it gets annoying.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
But there is a cohesion that comes out of the sound that would belie the fact that we've never played together, right? That's what we want it to sound like. Sounds like, what? This was the first time you guys are ever meeting? Sounds like you guys have been playing together for years. That's what we want.
Well, when you're listening to your accompaniment and you're incorporating it into your improvisation, it gives the accompanist some agency.
Yeah.
Like, again, like, I don't want to slack off here, right? But it gives you like a positive affirmation of like, oh, I can help shape this solo, even though it's not my solo, right? So you're going to give ideas. You might even take even more risks or more agency and like, I'm going to help shape this thing.
Yes.
And we're going to do this together. I know that what I'm doing is going to be like dealt with, you know, with attention.
Yeah.
And, you know, this is an old kind of Buddhist philosophy thing. It's like, but your attention is your love. Like that is when we say like playing with love, cooking with love, doing things with love. Yes. It's putting your full attention on something. And so when you're playing, why not put your attention on the music you're playing in all of it? You know,
and so it's like you're helping the others, and we can talk about this on certainly other levels beyond just a duo. This could be, typically you're sitting in or whatever, the jam session, there's going to be different conversations and a collective conversation going on. But it's very much like, you know, a basketball team, which is 5 players, a point guard that can shoot really well, say like a Steph Curry.
Yeah.
Ever heard of him?
Yeah.
Familiar with his work?
Yeah, of course.
No, it was a rhetorical question. Not a
no, Steph Curry, very famous. Yeah, no, of course I've heard of him. Stephen Curry.
Stefan, as they say in France. Yeah. So
the Golden State Warlords, correct?
Exactly.
No.
Yep. The G League. So when a great point guard like that,
Steve Kerr.
Very good, coach. When the point guard, Stephen Curry, is dribbling the ball down, part of his job, kind of his main job. But
Kevin Durant.
Nope, not with them anymore.
Oh, sorry.
Been about 5 years.
Okay.
But when they dribble down the court, he has the ability, if he's open, to just take a shot. And he'll do that sometimes. But normally what he'll do, and the way that the offense flows the best, and if we kind of take this over to the music, the flow of the whole music as opposed to just the soloist, like he'll pass, comes back to him, then he shoots. Now, what is the advantage? Some people might say, oh, well, you should have just come down and shot, saved everybody the energy and time. Maybe the other guys don't even have to run down the court and they can be back on defense.
Yeah.
But what happens is, in point guards, we'll talk about this, everybody getting to touch the ball. Not everyone is going to shoot the ball. Only one person can shoot. Well, if somebody else shoots and misses, then you're back on defense, right? But there's a back and forth. If everyone touches the ball and then the shot goes up, you might think, oh, that makes them feel good. They're part of the game. And no. It's not about that. It's about when they go back on defense, they've touched the ball. They have participated in the flow of the game. So the whole game, their whole play is going to be elevated.
Well,
not just that one play. So they're coming back on defense. They've already touched the ball. They're in better positioning. There's like many different things happening. And I think it's the same thing. Like when we listen, yes, you could just go solo and be like, well, I know he sounds pretty good, so he's just going to do his thing. But by taking that little bit of a passing the ball, get the ball back, you're still in charge, right?
Yeah.
You have the ability to improve something that's going to happen a chorus later or a tune later.
Yeah, and to bring it back to the music thing, like when everybody touches the ball, it's better for the audience, right?
Yes.
Because then it takes just the myopic thing of the soloist kind of out of the equation. The audience realizes that it's collective improvisation, and that's fun for them.
It's fun, right?
Because otherwise you might just...
You're not playing together.
You could just solo over some tracks.
Right.
Solo over an Abersol record, you know? Like solo over I Real Be play-alongs, right? Why not just do that if it sounds okay?
Right.
Which some people do. But
and some performances end up sounding like that, especially when we're in the danger of these situations where like, I don't really know them. So let's just all play it safe. And we're going to play like we're going to play like a backing track. And then when my solo comes, I'm going to play like a soloist because we don't have the ability to elevate things. But it's like, why not? We know the ground rules, right?
Yeah.
We know what tune is being played. We know what some of the possibilities. We even know some of the vernacular maybe that are typically played, but how can we make it sound atypical and not by rote? You know, all those things are available to us. Yes, you're not going to have the chances of success of communication at the highest level of people that you've played with for many, many years. But you're going to have the excitement of something new, maybe.
Yeah.
You know, like the All-Star game. When these are like, you know, it looks like they've been playing together. They're playing against each other.
Fun to watch.
Yeah, right.
That's great. So honestly, I think you can get most of this, not even with like eye contact or body language, but a lot with just communicating musically. Let's address your question.
And I think that's, I just want to point out, because we talked about that before in terms of visual versus, I still think that we should be shooting for mostly communicating
100%.
by sound,
well, like,
by listening, you know.
Let's give you an example of that. So let's start on the bridge, and it'll be my solo, right?
Okay.
And I can communicate to you that I'm done without having to look at you. And I'm going to look over here. Ready? 1, 2, 3, and... There was no doubt, right? There was no doubt. I'm ending. I'm kind of, doing all the musical things. We're going lower. I'm hitting sort of like punctuating. I hit some wrong notes. That's exactly what I like to do. No, but like punctuating some stuff at the end of the solo. And we didn't have to look at each other.
Kind of just rapping, like a little bit of foreshadowing, and then even some playfulness, and then kind of this is where we're going.
And then we're going to wrap it up. But Alex, let's address your question about
like I'm leaving the party, but just kidding.
I like to Irish coast out. Alex, let's address your question about what if someone's overplaying and you need them to stop overplaying, which is an interesting thing because that I don't consider it my job to police other people's playing in general. If it's at a jam session and I can see the bass player's exhausted and there's been 30 tenor saxophonists who are all playing a B-flat blues.
It's the drummer's responsibility to throw a cymbal at them.
That's right. There can be that kind of thing. But in general, if like we're on a gig together, I'm not going to police your playing. But if someone is overplaying, like Peter, we'll do my solo again, but maybe you can overplay the accompaniment, right?
Oh, I could possibly not do that.
But here's something that you might consider, which is like a bit of a judo move, right? Okay. So
you're soloing still, and I'm overplaying.
I'm soloing. You're overplaying the accompaniment. Like you're playing too busy for what is happening.
So just do like I normally do.
You said it. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, and.
Come on. Where'd you go? Oh, I got you. You got it. I got you.
You're fired. So that's
Wait, we're just doing normal, like how to communicate when we play.
yeah,
right?
yeah. No, so what I was trying to do there was bring Peter in. So instead of
Really? I
like,
thought you were passive aggressively letting out. Actually,
no. Instead of calling Peter out, I'm going to bring Peter in, right? So I'm actually going to like, if he wants to be playful and play all over my shit, we're going to be like, I'm going to, oh, okay, well, you got it. You know, like let's actually do some playing together then. So that's what I was trying to do. And then, I mean, you got really aggressive towards the end, so I did fire you after the gig because
you kind of went to the old trick of like, oh, whose solo is it? It's your solo. Okay, I'm going to relax. And if you really keep playing and keep your head down, I'm going to go over to the bar and talk to your girl while you're
also
soloing.
a possibility. Yeah. No, I mean, but I would strongly suggest you try to bring someone in because you could actually control that situation a little bit easier than if you're trying to butt up against them.
Right.
You could also do what the old heads used to do to us, which is stroll.
Go to a verbal, not a nonverbal, but a purely verbal.
If it really comes to that, stroll, which means shut up,
right?
Stop playing.
And we don't do that quick enough now.
Well, I don't do it at all anymore. I mean,
that's what I mean. See,
well, but I don't have many occasions where I'm playing with players who are walking. No, but
even if I know you, even if you got to that point where that would happen, you would literally get up and stroll your way out of the situation.
It really depends. It really depends. I mean, at this point in my career, I would probably, especially if it were like my gig or something, yeah, I'd be like, great playing with you. Nice to meet you. And then I just never would call them again. You know what I mean? Because there's other options or whatever. Yeah. But if I was stuck on, it wasn't my gig and you're with someone and they're overplaying or whatever. I mean, if it got really bad to like what you were doing towards the end, I might say something at a set break of like, hey, when I'm soloing, can you just like
play good instead of bad?
Like, let me have it a little more, you know, or something like that. I've never been in that situation. I'll be honest.
You're not enjoying our musical conversation, bro?
Well, no, I wasn't. But I've never been in a situation where someone is being that egregious with it, right? Where it's just like they're walking all over me on purpose, soloing around me.
It's happened before, but it was more, and maybe this is more common that happens to folks. It's more of like a group dynamic. It's not one-on-one.
Yeah, people can amp each other up for real.
I mean, I pride myself. I've definitely been in situations where I can be a little noteworthy with my duly noted with my noteworthiness. And I've been in duo situations before where I maybe pushed it a little bit and then got a little pushback from the other, which I actually think is a fun and that means we care and that we're listening. You know, it's kind of again like with the basketball analogy. You pass me, no, give me the rock. You know, it's not that you don't trust them, but I think it shouldn't always be, oh, everything went exactly, like there should be a little bit of checking each other.
Agreed.
You know what I mean?
It's part of a conversation.
Yeah.
If you and I were talking and you were just not leaving any space for me to be in the conversation.
Yeah.
At a certain point.
Or if I only agreed with what you said.
Right. At a certain point, I'd be like,
yes, man, or friend.
Yeah. Or I'd be like, oh, you got it. You know, I'd kind of with that attitude.
That's what friends do also. And when we talk about playing together, it sounds corny, but you want to be a good friend, a good supportive friend in terms of, even if you don't know them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like
but if it's like you're at a party and you're talking to someone and they're dominating the conversation, I'm just going to be like, this guy's a blowhard and I'm out of here, you know?
Right.
Because you don't have to be there.
Right. But like we said, like how often does that actually happen in a jam session or a gig? It's
not
pretty
very
rare.
often. Yeah. I mean, more I would think at a jam session just because people are learning and don't know sort of the etiquette of things.
But it's a teaching opportunity then.
It is. And that is definitely a teaching
those of us that have experience like we do, that's a matter to like take a breath and not be like, oh, this is beneath me, to be like, no, this is
something I have done at a jam session because the rhythm section had been up there for 20 minutes playing a blues is, Peter, let's play again. Let's play the last half of Autumn Leaves. Now I'm accompanying and you're on your solo. You've already taken 12 choruses of Autumn Leaves and you're about to go on your 13th. Okay.
Should we do the 12 so they really get the feel for it?
No, let's just do the last half of the 12th, but you're going to keep going, even though you don't have, as Montez Coleman used to say, you can keep going as long as you have something to say.
Right.
But you have run out of things to say. That's the scenario.
I feel like there's going to be some solo piano at that point.
Check it out. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, and. still saying some good stuff. So,
Am I supposed to stop playing good?
no, you got it.
I'm trying to play busy. Kind of weird and random. We're at the bridge. Oh.
He's still going. He's still going.
You know what I snorted before this? No.
Can't do that. You gotta stop wrecking the scenario.
Oh, I thought I was supposed to be like the worst,
Yeah. No, but this I'm just saying what you can do and what I've done before in like a
it's
jam
just
session situation.
force the segue.
If they're and what John Coltrane did on Giant Steps is like you gotta. I got it.
Yeah. A musical, I got it, basically. Yeah, that's super
Where you
effective,
kind of just take the ball from someone and said,
but I did the no. I give it back.
You got very aggressive with it back. I don't know what to do in that scenario. I guess just get in a fist fight out in the parking lot.
Yeah.
But usually,
like,
usually when they're not as confident as Peter Martin, that just saying like, I got will cause them to be like, oh, okay, cool.
Yep.
Yeah. And that's it. You don't want to do that like on a gig in a professional situation at all.
No.
But if it's a jam session,
but you want to head it off before it gets to that on a gig situation.
Likely, yeah.
You have to.
But if it's a jam session and like the bass player's fingers are bleeding and nobody's being respectful of that, then you have every right. And honestly, again, the guys that were older when we were younger would have cut it off well before that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
One thing I would like to add is that the communication can also happen. We're talking about musical communication, nonverbal communication, listening. That's all super important. But we can also do some communication usually before we play.
Oh, totally.
Great
idea.
It's very rare that we're in a situation, like even if you get called up like to sit in, say, hey, Adam Manis, we like to bring you up.
Yo.
When you get up there, you can be doing some communication with the other players. And then if it's about to start, and look, a lot of times that'll be like, wait, what key are we doing this? But you can also be like, all right, let's keep this tight, 2 choruses each, if the situation needs it. It doesn't have to be all or nothing like, okay, we're just going to let the magic happen and whatever happens, happens. That's great when you really know the players.
That's right.
But if you don't, it shows a sign of respect for the music and for the listeners if you do a little bit of organizational stuff. Or on a jam session, if you get up for a jam session, hey, guys, and also just a little bit, like if I'm a sax player and I'm coming up on a jam session, the rhythm section's been playing, as you say, maybe look around. Is the bass player's fingers bleeding? That would be a worst case scenario, but also just kind of like read the room a little bit, especially if you just walked in and you don't know how long it's been going. You don't know who played before. Hopefully you did hear that, but let's say you just walk in off the street. If not, kind of like, hey, how you doing? And like kind of read how everybody's doing. And then you might be suggesting a tune. They might say something. Sometimes it's like, and you can kind of, no, don't do that. Just because you have that, I see this too much. Somebody has their heart set on, I want to play Giant Steps. So they get up and they're like, what do you want to do? Giant Steps. And if they're like, don't be like, no, come on, let's do it. Come on, here. You know what I mean?
You should have plenty of tunes in the chamber ready to go.
Yeah, and ideally you're kind of bringing up something that makes sense for that point of the set, not what your preconceived thing is. Yeah. And that's all, I think, part of the communication process before you even play a note.
Let's talk about communicating how to end a tune. So again, we're on our autumn leaves. A tag again musically both.
So if I play something like that, I'm kind of cueing that, like, let's have some fun. And then when I'm doing that, I'm communicating that it's not a strict like 4/4 bar trade.
That's right.
So I just want to, Adam just did something there. This might be the most important non-verbal cue. When I went like, Adam went, like he gave a little, it wasn't as passive aggressive as I made it sound. It was actually very like, it was just a quick little thing, but it was like, yeah,
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, let's have some fun.
Affirmations are so much more useful than some negative feedback. So even like, I like that. As humans, we respond more positively to I like that than I don't like that. So if you hear something you like, give your partners a bit of affirmation and let them know, like, that shit you just did, that's my shit. I love that stuff.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And that doesn't necessarily mean he's going to like have to play it. Sometimes it's just, you know what I mean?
Totally.
Or there could also, but there's a fine line between that and a,
Well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, you got to be. I mean, you hear us do that on our intros all the time. We're constantly being like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, bro. And a lot of times, like, so musical conversation, like if he does that, and then I come and try to do the same thing, it's like, no, how can I hear that, like twist it, and then give him something to communicate off of, right?
Make each other sound better. You don't have to just copy what everybody's doing.
And then you can also don't feel like, oh, they sent me a thank you card, so I got to thank them for thanking. You're welcome for thanking. No, like you decide when you want to move on to something else. It's no like responsibility in terms of trading.
And then when we're going out, the melody to signal. And then a head nod. It's so hard to communicate to the listener what we're trying to do when Peter doesn't
no, but I'm saying that's the worst case scenario.
That is like,
you do everything right.
Yeah, worst case scenario, nobody's listening or paying attention. But I'm saying a great way to get out of it is like if you're trying to go rubato or you're trying to end it, a head nod, a simple head nod.
Yeah. You know what I think the biggest mistake, not what I did, that's not going to happen that much, but is I mean, that would be so egregious, but you'd be sick of that person well before that point.
Yeah.
But what does happen is no one wants to take charge because they feel like,
that's the worst.
Yeah, because like, I don't want to stop them from like, but when it feels right to you, you may be wrong. You know what I mean? But like, hopefully everyone will have the grace. Like when it starts to feel right.
When it feels right.
Yeah.
It's like when you're.
Just do it.
When you're at someone else's party or someone else's house and it's like, it feels right to be like, well, I had a great time. You can go.
Yeah.
Just go.
But you gotta be careful because
be polite.
Yeah, but if you do it too early, then you get the like, I guess it's,
well, no, we don't want to be in the middle of the bass solo and just be like, good night, guys. You know,
right.
Of course. Yeah.
Right.
But in general, feel free to take some, if you're feeling it, like you said, take charge with that.
Yeah. And I think in jam sessions, part of the reasons that it keeps going sometimes is like, there's always going to be a little bit of a later, like there's a lack of familiarity. You're not going to be like, you know, people that you really know. Mm-hmm. I love that when you're having dinner with like several people and like everybody just, like just sort of gets up, man, this was great. And like, there's not even a thought. It's usually when you don't know people as well. It's like, wait, should I get up? Oh, I don't want to, And so you have to understand the situation that you're in. You're not going to have that perfect exit or entry or whatever, and that's okay. Totally. But you want to just get in the range of it, and you want to communicate that to each other so that it can feel like that still to the audience.
It should feel like a natural human interaction.
Yeah.
Human interaction.
Like right now, you'll hear it.
Peter, this was so much fun. Alex, thank you for the great question.
You missed it.
Yeah, I wasn't paying attention.
Important part of communication.
Went straight past me. Great question. Hope we helped with that.
Ciao.
Again, if you want to leave us a question, go to you'llhearit.com and leave it into the speak pipe. Speaking of the pipe.
You know what? Maybe because we haven't been mentioning this, we've had a little bit of a...
Well, it's been great. What y'all getting up to?
Maybe because we haven't been asking for questions. Or something more important, possibly.
A GALA.
GALA, exactly. But they're going to have to wait around to the very end to find out what that is. You'll hear it.